Hey everybody, this is the pyramid jig that I came up with, and in the other video I showed you how to use it and just went over real quickly how to use it working with copper wire and soldering the joints together to make you a wire pyramid such as this. In fact, I think this is the one we did on the video. What we're going to do today is working with wood dowels to make a pyramid if you want to make them out of wood. From what I understand, you can make these pyramids out of any material you want and they still work like they're supposed to. Now today I want to go over the different pieces. Pretty much everything about this, it's not just random. I didn't just pull stuff out of my butt and throw it together. It's all, I tried to think everything through as completely as I could. Because I realize if you're into hobbies, kind of crafty, a lot of this stuff you may have, such as these little clamps or razor saw, different things like that. But if you're not crafty and you don't have any of these things, then what are you going to do? So I tried to incorporate everything into these pieces so that you don't have to have protractors and squares and such like that. Me being a machinist, I've got all that stuff, and it's easy for me to do because I got protractors and squares that'll give me tolerances smaller than a human hair. But not everybody has that luxury. So the basic part is the base. Okay, this is the part that's going to give you your 90 degrees for your base. And if you've seen the other video with the wire, you'd see how the wire comes up and comes together and it forms a perfect 90 degrees. So that's taken care of for you right there. Now these little pockets that you see, I provided those in there for your clamps. Now these clamps, they measure 2.5 inches long. I made the pad a little bit bigger in case you got clamps that are a little bit longer, and they should still fit. You don't have to go very huge on your clamps because it's just not that necessary. All these are doing is holding your pieces in place while you're gluing or while you're soldering. Once you've achieved that, then you can take them off and move it to the next. So here's your 90 degrees. Now, these angles here are 45. Okay, big deal, you think. Well, if you're using larger dowels like this and you want to miter your corners, you're going to want a nice 45 degree. So you can line your dowel on this back side, and you can use this piece, an alignment tool I call it, and you're going to lay it on there, and you can check to see if you have 45 degrees correct. And if it's off a little bit, you can use a little sanding block and get your angle right, and then come back and check it. Now another thing that you can do is you can use a sanding block on here if you have to touch it up just a little bit. This PLA filament that I use, it's pretty tough, but like all things, it has its limits. One thing it does not like is heat. So if you're soldering, working with the copper wire, keep that in mind. If you saw the other video, I had wet sponges on there so that the heat wouldn't get back in here. Because believe me, I burned up a few of these when I was experimenting with it. But as far as like sanding, you should be okay. If you're going to do a lot of it, I would suggest take a piece of masking tape and put on here. That way when you're rubbing back and forth, it'll rub against the masking tape and it won't destroy your jig. Okay, so that's 45 degree, so that you can check your miters. Make sure you get a real nice joint. Okay, now this one down here, like I said, this will give you your 90 degrees. These V's in here, they're made so that if you're using dowels or wire, it locates it and keeps it from walking around and holds it in a nice straight line. Kind of self-explanatory there. Now, this piece, I call it the alignment, because if you were using larger pieces of dowel like this, or 1/2 inch diameter, and you have all your pieces cut, sometimes it's kind of a sticky wicket to try to get things lined up. So you could put this in here, line it up, and you can rotate this. But see how that's open? You're going to want to rotate it so that it's nice and flat. And then you can put your clamp on here, remove this out, and then your next piece will go in, and boom, it automatically locates you. Perfect. There's no doubt that you're right in the corner. You don't have to use this. You can if you want to do that. You can just bring these up and just kind of fudge with them a little bit, adjusting back and forth, turning, so on and so forth, until you get it just right. You can do it that way as well. But one thing about it is, what you want to look for is when they're together, that they're nice and flat, like this. Okay? So that covers the alignment jig, and this also has other purposes as well, as you'll find out as we go along. Now, the corner jigs, on a pyramid, you have two different angles. You have what they call your slope angle, which is the angle of the side relative to the plane. And then you have your corner angle, which is your corner piece coming from the corner, comes up to the apex of the pyramid. This isn't the same angle as your slope angle, because your geometry is all different when you turn from your sides to your corners. Okay? So, these jigs, this one and this one here, are made for the corner angle. Okay? What we're going to be working with is 52 degree pyramid, which is modeled after the Egyptian pyramids. They have a side slope of 52 degrees, which trigonometry wise, when you start looking at your corner angle, it ends up being 42 degrees. Okay? So in this particular jig, you have 42 degrees from the plane, from the horizontal plane. So when you snap this into place, you're going to be located 42 degrees. That's going to give you your slope angle for your corner. Just like so. Okay? Simple, right? Okay, now, this angle here, this is going to give you your angle for the top of your corner pieces, because when they all come to meet together, like I did on this one, you want to make sure that you have the right degree of angle right there. It's not going to be the same. This is 42 degrees coming up from the horizontal plane, but whenever you get over here, you're coming it up at a 90 degree, which would represent the center of the pyramid, so your angle is a little bit different. That's what this angle is here for. Same thing with this jig. You can see how it's kind of configured a little bit different. Well, that's so that when you got it in the jig, in the base, and it's sitting there like that, and you have your pieces coming up here like this, you can use that to mark and get your degree of angle on your wood. Okay? So that when you're all said and done, your angles are going to come out right. You don't need special protractors or even a square or anything like that. It would be handy if you had a small scale like this, or better yet, 12-inch one like I got here. You can pick these up just about anywhere. You can use a tape measure to measure your lengths if you want to do that. That's fine. I just find that it's a little bit easier working with it using one of these. Okay, so then that covers your degrees of angle, and then of course you see you got your little pads right here for your clamps to go into. If you saw the other video with the wire, that comes in real handy. Now when you're working with the dowels, especially the larger diameter like this, if you've ever tried to clamp something round, it's really hard. You can put it on there like that and you think, okay, I'm in place. A little bit of movement, sometimes these things will move by themselves and they go flying off. So what you do, and it's another reason why I like these little spring clamps. They're cheap, easy to work with, but particular is these little pads. You want to take this pad and flip it over. Now see, you got this little notch right there. The bottom one you can leave it alone, but this one, flip it up so you remove this movable part. Now when you clamp it, your dowel in here, you want to get it so that, see how that little notch right there, it's kind of gripping on there. This doesn't roll. It's not going to come off on you. Once you clamp it on there, it's going to keep everything in place and you don't have to worry about it, because I've had these things come flying off of there and then you got to pick everything up off the floor and reset it. It's a pain in the butt. So whenever you're using these on dowels, take your pad, flip it over like that. When you clamp it on, you're going to be golden. Okay? Alright, I think that's about it for that right now. Let's get into this. I've already cut my pieces. I'm going to be doing an 8" by 8" square base. My side pieces, the length comes out to around 7 5/8. I've already cut them. But I'm going to show you how to use these pieces down here to get your angles you need for your miters so you can get started. Okay, so here we go. If you start out, new piece of dowel rod, you're going to have a square end. Alright, well, you're going to need to cut that at your first degree of angle. So how do you do that? Okay, you know that your first degree of angle right here, which is going to be coming up to the apex of your pyramid once these are all put together. So we're going to cut that angle first, or at least mark it. So all you have to do is put it on there. If you have one of these saws and you have enough room, you can go in here and you can saw right along the side of it and you're good. That'll work. I've done that on all these pieces. If you don't have one of these, you can always take a pen. Let me scoot this camera down a little bit so you can kind of see what's going on here. Now, to keep things from moving around on you and getting all haywire and out of whack, you take your clamp, stick it on here, and it'll hold your dowel into place while you're marking. You can take this alignment jig, lay it on here. You can take a pen, mark your degree of angle. See the mark on there? And then you can cut it, take it out of the jig, and you can cut it with your little saw. Once you're done, what I would recommend doing is put a little X on this end to make sure, to tell you, once you got all your pieces cut, that this is going to be the end that goes up in the top of your pyramid. Okay? So now that we got that marked and cut, our corner pieces, we want to be 7 5/8 inches. I've already put a mark right here. Now, you got to keep in mind that this length is, when you're working with miters, it's what's called the long length. You can see on these pieces, both ends are mitered. This is your long length, and this is your inside length. Your inside length is always going to be shorter. Well, to keep things simple, we're working with the outside, the long length. So I've already measured this and marked it 7 5/16. And then what you're going to do, so you've already got your angle established here. Now if you notice when I roll this, the flat side of this angle kind of changes. It's very important when you're doing these, you want this flat to be 90 degrees from your table. If you're turned this way, and then you cut your degree of angle down here on this end, and it's 90 from the table, they're not going to match up right. They're going to be off. So we want to use this alignment jig, clamp it to the table, because it'll give you the 90 degree face that you want, and bring that up till you're just touching, and roll it a little bit so that you feel that it's not rolling anymore. Bring it back a little, and you want it to come up and just touch. Okay, we'll get our handy dandy El Cheapo life-saving clamp here, put that on there, holds everything nice and snug. Now on this end, you can see the mark right here. Now we need to mark a degree of angle on there. How in the hell are we going to do that? Okay, we know that this represents your horizontal plane, and we know that once we get them together, it's going to be sitting like this. So you can use this alignment jig, line it up with the bottom. There's our mark right there for our length, and you can use a pen or a marker, mark your degree of angle. See the degree of angle there? Now what I've done on the very first piece, cut my angle down here on this end, the top of it, and when I put it in here in the jig and I had my overall length marked there, I adjusted this back and forth so that each 4 pieces that I put in here and mark, they're all going to be the exact same length. It takes a few minutes messing around to get it right in the beginning on the first one, but once you do that, it's going to save you a lot of time on the back end of it. Okay, now we got it marked, and if you have one of these, you can get them on Amazon. X-Acto makes them. There's several different brands. They're called a razor saw, hobby saw, anything like that. They're like $10, and the handle is removable from the blade. They're interchangeable. They work really, really slick for doing this stuff. You can use the bottom of the jig right here as a guide for your saw. You can just kind of take your knuckle as a guide for the side of the blade, kind of hold your dowel in place, line it up with your mark, get your score started, and just go back and forth. Sorry about the camera shaking. Boom, done. You do that for each 4 of them. You can even do the same thing basically for these, for your base pieces. You can put them on there like that, mark them however you want to do it. You can cut them, and then you're good. So then what we want to do is mark this up here, that this is going to be our top. This is our top end. That way your degrees of angle will come out right. Okay, so that's how you cut all your pieces. Alright, moving right along. Now that we have all of our pieces cut, let's set the jig up to actually start assembling them and make a pyramid. Take all this out of the way. And this clamp here, it's a 4-inch slide clamp. I like using it because it gives you the versatility of being able to clamp it to a thin table, or if you're working off of, say, a dining table, you know, that's a little bit thicker. You can do that if you have a workbench or something that's got wood that's a little bit thicker as well. It'll allow you to do that. You don't have to use that. You can use some of these bigger ones like this, and you can put in there, and I would recommend doing it off to the side, because if you put it in here, it's going to interfere, possibly be in the way. That's kind of like why, that's kind of reason why I like using these, because You get in there, hold things in place, and they kind of stay out of your way. You don't have to tighten this down super tight. The idea is just to hold everything snug so it's not moving around on you and you're not fighting everything. Okay? I'm going to readjust this a little bit. Bring this back. Zoom in a little bit more so you can kind of see what's going on here. Okay, now your base pieces, we'll bring these up, rotate them. Okay, we're going to get our first clamp. Remember, flip that pad up so you get that little notch, hold it right in place. Same thing with this one. And turn that just a little bit. Good there. And our second clamp. Beautiful. Okay. Now, on your corner pieces, this is another thing. Once you get the 4 pieces together, see how this has been, I've mitered it out. This one I just did real quick. It fits pretty close, but it's not perfect. I was just doing it real quick to make sure everything on this jig worked. So the larger diameter dowels you use, the more this is going to be important, because you want these corners right here to come together. Because when you're figuring your geometry, you're figuring from one central point here at the top down to this corner. And if you don't line these up right, these 2 sides here are going to be sticking way up in the air and they're not going to locate right. So you have 2 choices. Either miter like this, or if you can just go with a degree of angle like this. Let's see if I can hold these without fumbling around. Your first 2 opposing can come together like that, and if you bring these ones up to the side, you'll have to subtract half the diameter of the dowel you're using. So let's say you're using 1/2 inch dowel. Half of that would be 1/4 inch. Say your length for your corner is, say, 5 inches. So for these 2, this one and this one over here, you're going to subtract 1/4 inch off of each one of these. That way when you put them together, you'll have to make sure you put them in the right order. They'll come together and you'll be okay. That's doable as well. One thing I did find is when you're working with smaller diameter dowels, say like barbecue skewers, because there's not that much mass right here, it's a lot more forgiving on errors. You don't have to be quite as close. You won't have to be as close on things. Here's one that I did out of barbecue skewers. Now see what I'm talking about here on the top of it? I had these 2, this one and this one, come together, and then these 2 I just shortened up about 1/16 of an inch, half of the diameter of the skewer, and just glued them to the outside. That's a nice thing about working with the barbecue skewers. You don't have to be as precise on your cuts and on your joints. Just as long as you got your measurements right and all 4 pieces for your base are the same size and all 4 pieces for your corner are cut correctly, you'll be okay. Alright, moving along. What we got here. Now make sure these pieces are both the same. Yep. Get this clamp on. This clamp on. Okay, our bottom's done. Now here's our, well, that's the one that we cut. Oh no, okay. Here we go. Get pieces all over the place. I don't want to stick the wrong one. Now this is my one of my corner pieces. This is the top. I've already sanded it. Okay, and these will be 45 degrees on each side. You're saying, well, how in the hell am I going to get that? Well, you can use a little sanding block and just go at it like this. See, kind of hold it at a 45 degree angle on both sides until you think you got it right. The only thing you want to watch is you don't sand the end so far that you end up shortening the length of your corner piece. You don't want to do that. So to check to see if you're going to be okay, it's another handy thing. See this groove right here? This groove is 90 degrees, included angle, which means half of this is 45. So you can use this, take your pieces, stick them in there, and gauge to see if you got a 90 degree sanded on your corners. See that? And you can do that with all four of your pieces. Stick them in this one to see if you got it right, or you can stick them in this one. They're both the same. Now we're going to stick this in here, bring it down to our bottom angle is touching. Get one of our clamps, flip the pad around. See, flip the pad. Get your dowel located. Get your clamp on there, nice and sturdy. You want to look down at it from the side. See how the corner piece comes down and it's resting nice and flat on your base pieces. Wonderful, wonderful. Let me get this back on here. Okay, now what I usually like to do is I work with people refer to it as super glue. It's CA glue, cyanoacrylic. A lot of modelers use this. This particular brand I use is Star Bond. This is medium. It's not real liquidy like regular super glue is. It'll run on you real bad. This is a little bit thicker and it doesn't run as much. Okay. And then if you want to cut down on your drying time, you can get what they call an accelerator. Okay, it contains acetone. And what this does is it speeds up the drying time on your CA glue. Normally they say, oh, well, just a couple of seconds. But sometimes when you're gluing wood together like this, it might take a few minutes where you got to kind of walk away, get a cup of coffee, come back, take a couple sips, and then check it. If you're using an accelerator, you don't have to do that. And I'll show you here in just a second. So we got our glue. What I like to do is just kind of come in here. You can push this to the side just a little bit, squirt you some glue there. Put a little bit over here on this side. There we go. Now our accelerator, just give it a little squirt on that side. It should be good. Test it here and see. Yep. If you ever watch a video, I got this on Amazon. They have a video how to use it. They'll show you putting like a drop of glue down here on this piece and then spraying this one with the accelerator and then sticking them together. You can do that as well, but if something happens, you slip, you ain't quite got it aligned right, you're screwed. I like to put everything in the jig, clamp it into place, and then put some glue on it, and then give it a couple spritz of the accelerator, and I like to do it that way. Okay, we should be good. Take our clamp off. All right, we're held into place. Look at that. Nice. Wunderbar. Okay, now on to the next corner. If you'd seen the video doing the wires, this is basically the same way. Once you get your first joint done, you rotate it over this way. Now you can use your alignment tool. Let me zoom this back a little bit so you can see what's going on back here. Now see how this is kind of resting down and this end is kind of sticking up in the air? Well, when you clamp this end down here is still going to want to droop. Now when you go to glue your next piece in this way, these two are flat with each other, but this one's going to be down at an angle. You're going to watch that because you don't want that to happen. So what you're going to want to do, I found this works pretty easy. Take your alignment jig, kind of put it back here. And that helps raise that up a little bit and gives you a better chance of coming out nice and flat. And again, just like we did in the beginning, bring your corners up. Get the clamp on this one. Bring this one up, roll it till it's nice and flat. Clamp this one in place. Voila. Now what you can do, if you want to, you can put a little bit of glue here to start getting these two glued together. And then get your corner piece. Bring it in. And then you can put a little drop of glue on it and slide it into place. Whatever you want to do. I'm just kind of showing you the way I did it. Kind of worked best for me. But everybody's different. Okay, check the bottom, and we're pretty good. So again, we'll just come over here and move this out just a little bit. Put your double glue. Put your double glue there. And you don't have to use CA glue. You could use hot melt glue gun if you want to. If there's some other particular type of glue you work with, that's fine. Like I say, everybody's different. Everybody has their preferences. This is just what I worked with, and I find it's pretty quick and pretty easy. And you don't even have to use the accelerator on it. This just kind of speeds things along. Okay. Give it a second there. Okay, we're rock solid. Take our clamps off. Looking good so far. Now see how our corners are coming together up here at the top? Nice. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and do the other ones, and as soon as I get them glued up, then come back and then I'll show you how to get the top lined up. Be just a second. Alright kids, I'm back. I got all four corners glued up and got all my pieces glued together. Now the only thing that's left is to glue these together up here at the peak of the pyramid. Now you can see what I was talking about when you do your corner pieces. The larger material that you're using, the more you're going to want to try to get these mitered so that they fit together a lot better. This is a little bit sloppy, but I was kind of in a hurry to get these ready so I could get this video done. Everybody's screaming at me to hurry up and get it done because they want to order these. So anyhow, this is how we're going to do it. The easiest way I've found is I use these little wooden wedges. You can get these at a hardware store, home goods center stores. You could probably order them online. They're wooden wedges. Construction guys use them to level up windows, doors. They come in real handy. If you got furniture that's got a leg that's a little bit shorter, you can stick these underneath of them. What you're looking for is something with a nice flat side to it. It doesn't matter if it's angled, just as long as you have one side that's flat. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to stick them in here, and we're going to go catty corner. We're going to do this one and clamp them together so that we can line them up this way. And then we're going to do the opposing corners, and we're going to do the same thing and line them up. You can't put them on the same two sides like this because you can't get them lined up right. You have to go opposing corners. So what we're going to do is stick this in here, get some clamps here. We'll flip it around. Remember, when you're clamping on dowels or anything around, you want to flip this pad out of your way so you get that notch right there, so that it'll bite into the wooden dowel. Clamp that into place. First one, I usually try to move it down as low as I can to give you enough room up here in the top for your other wedge or wooden piece. You want to make sure it's something that's kind of sturdy, stiff. Okay, so we got that on there. See how it looks? Okay, now we're just going to kind of take these and line them up a little bit. Okay, we're going to get our other wedge, stick it in here. Get 2 clamps ready. And this is basically the same process I used when I was soldering the wire together. Works very, very well. Now, clamps and holds everything still so you can adjust it, get it into place, and then either solder it or glue it together. Just kind of work them around here. Take your time. You can adjust the clamps around. I'm going to try to get it as close together as you can. Nice thing about the wire is you can bend it and tweak it a little bit to get it to where you want. The wood is a little bit different. Sometimes you gotta kind of fight it with the clamps a little. That's not too bad. It's not perfect, but you get the idea. Okay, so we're just going to come in here, put a glue on it. There was a wee little hole right here in the center where the 4 come together, which kind of makes it advantageous. You put a little bit of glue on it, it'll run down in there between all 4 pieces. Oop. Okay. A little spritz of our accelerator. And we're stuck. Okay. Take our clamps off. Put the cap back on our bottle. And we're done. All come together at the peak. Real nice. Like I say, if I took a little bit more time cutting these miters up here on the pieces, it would have fit together a lot nicer. But like I said, I was kind of in a hurry to get these cut so I could get this video made, because I got a ton of other things I got to get done today. So, okay, now what we're going to do, I'm going to show you how to check, see if you're square. What you do is you go from opposing corners. You do it like this. You go that corner there up to the opposite corner, and you take a measurement, and then you turn your scale or tape measure and you go the opposite corners, this one here up to there. I had already done this and it came out perfectly square. Now your slope angle, just to double check, set this there. You need a flat board or some such, and the idea is to put it against your bottom piece, let it rest against the side, and then you bring your protractor up, move it down till it hits the board. Should be 52 degrees. Yep, 52 degrees. Egyptian pyramid. And it doesn't matter how many of these you make with this jig, as long as you cut your pieces to the right length and your bottom pieces are the same length and your corner pieces are matching lengths, what they're supposed to be, you'll come out perfect every single time. I've got a ton of these pyramids laying around here that I've built trying this pyramid out, using different materials, wire, copper tubing. When I was doing the copper tubing, that's what burnt my jig up because it got too hot. The wooden dowels, they all came out the same way. The same is true for the big, tall, skinny pyramids, using this, which will give you a pyramid of 76.34 degrees. A lot of people like those. This will come out the same way. This is how you use the jig. Pretty simple. I kind of tried to think of everything to put in these jigs so that you don't have to run out and buy protractors and squares and this and that and get a lot of money involved. I know everybody works hard for their money these days and things are so expensive, and I want to try to give value for people's money, okay? One other thing I wanted to kind of touch on is, earlier I mentioned about the barbecue skewers. I've showed you a pyramid that I made out of these. They're easy to work with. You don't have to bother sawing. You can get you a pair of snippers like this to cut your skewers to the length you want. It makes making these pyramids out of these skewers really, really quick, really, really easy. Okay, and there's another thing I wanted to show you is when you're aligning your corners. Well, these are probably too short now. And I was mentioning about cutting the miters, like on the larger dowels. See how these got a 45 degree, kind of like making a picture frame. With the smaller ones, you don't have to do that. You can come in like I was describing with the wires, and you can offset them like this. instead of being mitered where your corners that come together and you have that degree of angle, you don't necessarily have to do that. You can do it this way, bring it in. This is what they call an offset joint. The only thing is you have to do it exactly the same way on each corner. So like on the other video I did with the wire, I described on there, if you do it like this, where this one, your right hand piece is sticking out long, and then this left one comes up to it, you want to make sure that when you go to your next corner, you line them up exactly the same way. If you do that, you will be square all the way around. Okay? If you do it like this on one corner and the next one you do it opposite like this, you're not going to be square, because this side is going to end up being short and it's not going to work out right. So you can do it this method. I guess another good way would be showing you with a larger diameter like these. Even these dowels, you can do the same thing. You can bring, and it doesn't matter which way you start out, you can make this one offset long and this right one come up short to it. That's fine, as long as you do it this exact same way on all four corners. Or you can do it this way. I usually do it this way because I'm right-handed, and everything with the right-handed is usually dominant to the other side, so it's just easier in my head to automatically go through and keep them right. So this is another method you could do. You don't necessarily have to cut your miters on your base 45 degrees if you don't want to. You can do it this method. But when you cut your corner pieces, you're going to have to cut your angle down here at the bottom, so that whenever you bring it down and line it up with your bottom pieces, it'll set flat. See what I mean? If you had one that you didn't cut the miter on, and when you bring it down, this is what it's going to look like. You're not going to line up well. See all that big gap and everything else in there? That's crappy. That's not going to work. So on your base pieces, you don't necessarily have to cut your 45 miter. You can if you want, not necessary. You can do it with the squared ends, and you can overlap, as long as you keep your overlaps the same. On your corner pieces, you're going to have to cut your angle so that when you bring it down and it meets the base pieces, you're sitting flat. And that'll give you a much stronger joint whenever you go to glue it, because you have more surface contact. Okay? Now, if anybody has any questions about pyramids, how pyramids work, function, their benefits, I'm not an expert on that. I just build the jigs. I kind of have a knack for figuring out how to do things the easiest, cheapest way. As far as like pyramid power and stuff like that, I'd suggest getting hold of Lisa at Pyramid Surge on Etsy. She's very knowledgeable in pyramids. She has a lot of wonderful products on her page. You could give her a shout, ask her questions. I'm sure she'd love hearing from anybody. And if it's questions about the jig and how to do something, I'm your guy. As far as how pyramids work, what's best for this or what's best for that, get a hold of Lisa or Pyramid Surge. Very knowledgeable, wonderful gal. Alrighty, kids, I hope that helps. I'll probably end up making another video, maybe possibly after I get some of this tweaked, and maybe make a better video. I'm not a video photographer, so I'm just flying by the seat of my pants here. But I hope this kind of gives you the idea of how this jig works, how versatile it is. Allows you to do two different kinds of pyramids. You can do any length you want, any height. This jig here is 4 inches by 4 inches. So the smallest pyramid that you could make, I would say, would be about 5 inches by 5 inches. Be the smallest. You could go up and make as big as you want, because this is just dealing with the corner and your corner piece coming down and gluing those three together at the proper angle. As far as size, sky's the limit. Or your budget, how much material you want to buy. Okay? So, I think this is a pretty good idea. I think it'll work out pretty well for anybody, everybody. If you have any questions about the jig, how it works, just give me a shout. Till next time, kiddos.